I've heard people say that cinema is dead. What do you think about that?
I totally disagree with them that cinema is dead, and it's just for a variety of reasons. Of course, the medium is a bit more, it's different now
Okay.
in terms of the fact that there are different alternatives for you to be able to watch movies.
Movies, yeah.
Or what makes cinema particularly special in this part of the world
Yeah.
is our culture of experiencing things together,
Yeah, our community.
our community
Yeah.
culture, right? And that's why we have a duty now to make it more inclusive.
Moses Babatope has shaped how Nigerian films reach the big screen. With nearly 25 years in the game, he is now Nollywood's highest grossing executive producer and one of the most trusted minds in film distribution. He's distributed some of Nollywood's biggest titles and pulled off not one but 2 billion-naira hits. And he even wants more.
We're here as now to help solve is how can we get more platforms to formalize the demand that exists for our content.
But even as box office numbers climb, uncertainty hangs over the industry. Some even say cinema is dying. So why is Babatope doubling down on opening more screens? I sat down with him to ask the question on everybody's mind. What does he know that we don't?
So I heard that you are the highest grossing executive producer in Nollywood. Is that true?
So yes and no.
Okay.
So I'll tell you, let me start with the yes. Highest grossing executive producer of a film.
Of a film.
Everybody Loves Jenifa. I was executive producer of that.
Yeah.
Courtesy of my very good friend and sister, Olufunke Akindele, who I worked with on the film. So that's correct to say I'm the executive producer of the highest grossing film. So the highest grossing film. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. What does that mean to you? What is the significance of that?
So it occurred to me the way the attendance pattern was going post-pandemic. I don't let me say post-pandemic because let's use Omogeto. Omogeto it signaled something very strong to me about the potentials of our box office. Omogeto, everybody, a lot of people don't know till today, I think has a higher admissions number than Wedding Party, because Wedding Party also had a big admissions number. The difference in these films is like the average ticket price for Wedding Party was probably just about 1,000 naira. By Omogeto it had increased a little bit. But I noticed that wow, people could come out
and buy,
and where they were telling us we had to, do 50% occupancy. So I just knew with that number, it was only a matter of time with the right film, we would get to, 1 billion. But specifically to your question, once I saw A Tribe Called Judah in the cinema at the premiere, I was convinced. And I said, this could be it. The reactions, that film just had everything. And the timing as well. And you have to say, nobody makes 1 billion on a platter. You've got to market, you've got to work, you've got to work for it. You just had the right emotions, just connected very well with the audience, deeply with the audience. And that was achieved. When I heard of the story of Everybody Loves Jenifa, again, and I hope that people listening see that some of these things are not quite fluke. Some of these things are kind of, it's almost like a formula. This is one of the most watched series over at least a decade.
Yes.
An iconic character that, akin to, Tyler Perry has Madea. In the UK, Mr. Bean. You can look at various markets. They have those kind of characters. I think in Turkey, they also have an iconic comedic character. And this is also a lady that's cultivated a fan base over time and consistently over time done well at the box office and now brings back an iconic IP, with a star-studded, you know, I was like, it's almost, I cannot see how this won't be a success. And let's also not forget that it came where streaming were a double down in investment, and it made that performance a bit more special, right? And then you have Everybody Loves Jenifa, and then you have a Lagos Christmas on Prime as well, come out at that time, and people are watching regardless of the platform. So
Babatope was never meant to work in film. Raised in a deeper life household as the first of 6 children to Segun Babatope, a former chairman of National Concord's editorial board, the kids weren't even allowed to watch TV. But his younger brother, Babajide, would sneak next door to watch films. Then he would drag Moses along. Years later, when Moses worked at Odeon Cinemas in London, it was Babajide again who pushed him to start showing Nollywood films.
2004, 2005, again, he reaches out to me. This time I'm in Odeon. I've spent a few years in Odeon. I was like, yo, this Odeon where you dey? Maybe they bring Nollywood films come now. That I met Dakore, I met, Blessed Dakore, and, they were like, oh, let's explore. So that was where the first idea of bringing Nollywood films to the UK came from. Again, kudos to my brother on that. And then, fortunately for me, I now met our other partners, Mr. Kenel Paru, and then I was working with my other partner, Kenel Kosa, at the time. And that's where the, passion grew. Because my brother was also very adamant and following up. And then once I met Kenel Paru, who was already doing things, and he had done 2 films, he even starred in one. I remember very well, one called The Successor, and another one called Lucky Joe. One of them was directed by Obi Emeloye. One was done in 2005, and one was done in 2006, if I remember very clearly.
Wow.
And then we now also worked on a film that was the first digital, what we call digital kind of like film, because it was called Twisted, directed by a guy called Nito Olawi, who is my distant cousin.
Okay.
So it's a family thing.
It's looking like a family thing. Big shout out to Nito Olawi.
Okay.
And so Ni invested quite a lot of money then, without any distribution framework or structure.
I'm glad you mentioned that,
Yes.
because I'm very curious about what distribution was like even
Yes.
back then, because watching Nollywood on the big screen was not really a thing.
Yes.
Like you said, home video.
Yes.
You go to the shop, rent your film, and make sure you return it.
Yes.
So how did you navigate distribution on the big screen? What were like the key, steps that you took to bring that to life?
I think we just saw, look, when we were in the UK at the time, whether you like it or not, Nollywood was phenomenal. Why was it phenomenal? You went to Peckham, you went to Deptford, you went to Brixton, you went to places that had Nigerian or African community. Nollywood VCDs were in abundance. They were loads of it.
And that's very interesting to hear. So
Yeah.
Alaba was not just in Alaba.
It was not just in Alaba.
It was,
like
okay.
Peckham, you went, and so you could not dismiss the fact that Nollywood was popular. And then where my auntie that I lived with as well will have our fair share of, watching all of those things. So for us, it became apparent like, okay, people are already watching this stuff. What can we do to bring it to cinemas where we already see people also paying to watch stuff? So ours was let's also tap into this opportunity. You do understand, and in a way as well help the industry. That was our thoughts. So that's where we now said, look, there's extra inventory late nights on Friday and Saturday, that we can talk to our bosses about, and then start exploring. We knew that the films were not of the highest quality. We knew it was hard to bring it in 35 millimeter and all of that, but we just said, let's try. And that was what informed the late night screenings that we were doing. And that late night screenings became a phenomenon, started the premiere culture in the UK.
So that was how it started?
That's how it started, yes.
They ran with it and they never looked back. In true Nollywood fashion, UK premieres quickly became the launchpad for major Nigerian releases. And when Babatope and others returned home to build distribution and exhibition empires, they brought that premiere culture with them, setting the tone for the red carpet and box office runs we now take for granted. But for Babatope, premieres alone are no longer enough. With Nile Media Entertainment Group, he is chasing something even bigger. A cinema experience that reaches both the luxury elite and underserved communities across Nigeria and beyond.
At the very low level, there's no Nollywood industry without that segment.
Okay.
They are the real fans. They are the ones that watch. They are the ones that... It's not great to celebrate, but I think they're the ones that popularized piracy because we've not really given them access. And whatever access we've given them has probably been too expensive for them. And they're the ones that I think that the next set of stars we want to build, they're the ones that would validate them for us.
Okay.
And it's important that if we want to be self-sustaining as an industry and stop complaining, we need to get our films to that segment. They're the ones that earn daily. They're the ones that, as they earn daily, they want to have fun daily. So how you taking it to them in an affordable manner is critical. Because at the end of the day, it's entertainment.
It is entertainment.
You know,
That is great because I also wanted to know if it made financial sense.
when we've done the numbers, it is not as straightforward.
Okay.
It is not as immediately profitable. But it's a long-term play. But it's a long-term play that we're committed to. And I think that with kind of financing that was being discussed, it fits a lot of agendas for development and finance institutions,
Okay.
donor organizations, you know, various charities, because it ticks a lot of boxes.
It does.
You know, it can become a medium for education, social cohesion, like I mentioned, you know, cultural discovery. You know, it can become a medium for national orientation. There's a number of things it does. So where in the short term, it might be tricky to see where the profit is coming from. In the long term, with those other benefits that happen from day one, you know, I feel like, don't let me also say, like, feel like, I believe that it will become a phenomenon. Look at India. India kind of is known for a lot of one-screen, you know, township and village cinemas. So I feel like it's not late for us to start Nigeria off without, it's just that we don't need to start building them. And I'm not at liberty to kind of say some of the innovations we're also looking at in terms of, you know, kind of cost effectively setting up shop in some of these places where there's
talk
the
about
infrastructure.
the manpower that you need to operate those as well.
The idea is to connect the locals to be able to run these places, yes. To make it as seamless as possible and use technology. I think one of the biggest things for us as operators is revenue protection and content security. So are we able to ensure that it pays for itself and runs well and content is secure? I think those two things, every other thing we can train people, we can show them how. It's just important that for the service we're giving, there's payment for it so that we can continue to reinvest and we can continue to pay for basic, you know, resources. And that IP is protected, you know, because I'm here, somebody in Sokoto, I don't know what they're doing, you know, and if they're not monitored properly or if there's no real secure technology, what's to say they're not recording it, you know. So those are the things that we continue to work on. We continue to work on to just ensure that in our bid to make it accessible to all, we don't leave another potential risk. We're not treating cinema business as mass market. And for me, my own definition of mass market is not just, you know, how do I call it? Not just people of a certain cadre. You know, a lot of people think low class. For me, is everyone. And hotels have been there for the longest. They have boardrooms, they have gyms, they have restaurants. You know, why can't they have cinemas for a clientele that can pay.
I can afford it.
A clientele that can easily become an option as they are booking, that we can convert very fast, that everything entertainment can be, in one space.
Yeah.
I think to also let people know, members of the public are allowed in. The hotel will love that.
So it's not just
the hotel
people
guests.
here?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the hotel will also tell you, on a good day, they would like people to visit their restaurants. There's a spa here.
Yeah.
Nice for the hotel guests, but surely they would like walk-in guests. So trying to get that walk-in guest to just have a nice time. And that's where it gets interesting is somebody walks in here, sees how nice the place is, has a great experience, and like, I should take a room. Those are the kind of opportunities we want to kind of lean us or kind of steer cinema towards, as really value adding entertainment.
It's like a
business.
symbiotic relationship between cinema and the
hotels. So for me, I just feel like we've just been content with what we have and what we think is cinema, and that's what Nile attempts to do. People that will want to be critical will be the space enough, shouldn't be multi-screen, so there are options. My take is, as long as it's differentiated in terms of what you cannot get at home, as long as it can be communal and people can be together and have a great time, I think that's cinema. And and I'm a businessman. How do we scale that? And that's what we're attempting to do. And Ventano is a great location for us to do it.
Okay. Let's talk about taking Nollywood cinema outside the shores of Nigeria.
Yeah.
I mean, you've done that successfully. I heard you say that Everybody Loves Jenifa screened in Finland.
Yes, correct.
And I was like, what? Finland?
Yeah.
These are areas where, Nollywood cinema is not typically screened on the big screen.
Yes.
What is that like, planning to expand even more, taking more titles to the big screen?
Our plan for Everybody Loves Jenifa was even more. I think 30 was our minimum, 30 countries or
30
territories,
countries.
yes. We were going to then go to 45 and then go to 60, depending on what we recorded with, the 30. And we're happy with what we got with 30. We just found out that we needed to put more. Our star and EP and producer and chief marketer needed to spend more time in Nigeria.
Okay.
Because in going to all those other markets, we needed her, to kind of open up some of those places and those opportunities. Look, the plan is, if the South Koreans can do it, Nollywood can. For me, Nollywood is the representation of black cinema.
Okay.
In its purest, in its most commercial, in its truest form, and we're just unlocking it, gradually. And so that's the ambition, is that we go to all the corners of the earth, but we also go sensibly. And by sensibly, I mean unapologetically first the Nigerian community, Nigerian diaspora, African or sub-Saharan African diaspora, and then we begin to expand with the communities, people that are married to Nigerians, people that work with Nigerians, people that love world cinema, and then people that just love international content.
Yes.
So we kind of expand like that. But the ambition is to go to as many countries as possible that we can. If you recall, there's a population in the UAE, there's a population in Saudi Arabia.
Yes.
Those are places that we want to go to, and we will go to.
Okay.
We want to go to China. I don't think China has discovered African cinema per se.
Just yet.
And that's a big market. Once something resonates very well, and we think that we will find it, and a lot of other markets. So definitely on the horizon to prioritize that with the right films.
Babatope's vision is bold and it is contagious. Listening to him, it's easy to get swept up in the promise of what's ahead. But before we look too far into the future, I wanted to bring the conversation home to the cracks still visible in the system today.
Why is it important for cinemas to also distribute?
Wow, that question is good. Look, our audiences are demanding more.
Okay.
The cinemas know the audience probably the most, and what they want and what they react to. We find that a lot of times filmmakers think they know the audience, but they don't do enough to know the audience. And by doing enough, I mean how many times are they watching films?
You mean the filmmakers?
The filmmakers themselves. How often are they watching films with the audience
Okay.
to see what they are reacting to? How conversant are they with film business? How close are they to distributors, giving them information about film business, and how much of that are they receiving and taking on to make more entertaining films? I feel cinemas understand the DNA of the audience. Want a situation where, in the absence of filmmakers, giving the films that are required, as you call them, cinemas or what I call it, companies, group of companies with, interest in production, can guide that.
Okay.
They have the resources, or they can find the resources, or they've shown a business model that works, that they can get funding and say, look, we think this kind of films will work because so and so have worked before, and these are the numbers we can show. So cinemas have had to, when it was done then, when I would say Film House pioneered it, Film One pioneered it, it was also done out of necessity.
Okay.
We just didn't have enough product consistently. Enough product that people wanted to see on the big screen. We didn't have it consistently. You can argue now that there's more product, but is there enough product that people want to see in cinema? Is there enough product that people would consider that their 5 to 7K is worthy?
Paying for, yes.
Yeah. And that's why, honestly, you cannot blame cinema. Cinemas have to keep their lights on. So they have to think 360. It's not every cinema that can do it. The ones that can do it, they do it because, they need to be here. They need to come into, and some also do it for business advantage.
Okay.
So if you have the resources, you run your business well, it's profitable, your balance sheet is strong, why not?
Because there's talks about how some cinema houses are now, favoring their own titles over others.
Yeah.
So who is really benefiting from this business model?
Look, we're human, and the tendency for protectionism, that's why a lot of, if you look at international trade, there's a lot of talk about, protectionism and all of those things. They're a phenomenon that happens, I'm not going to say that it happens or it doesn't. I won't be surprised if it did. I don't think it's done out of spite. I think sometimes it's just, just looking at it, weighing all options and seeing how much has gone into it, and you just want to give it the best chance, and you're in a position to be able to. I can see that, and it could be dangerous for the sector. But generally, I still think that there's a level playing field for any film that is competitive.
Okay.
I think there is. I mean, I think that if it's a film that is desired by the audience, I think there's a level playing field, and you will know very quickly. A film that people really want to see, the audience will make that demand. I also think there's a strong argument for midwifing films, a particular type of films, like giving them enough chance to make an impression on an audience or
How
grow.
do you mean?
There are films that require word of mouth validation over time, and they need a lot of it to make an impression on the audience. And those need some kind of patience, and by patience I mean see enough potential prospects in it. It won't be like the biggest blockbuster, but see whether you can give it 1 or 2 weeks, to really settle. Unfortunately, the cinemas are not as patient because they have bills to pay. So for me, I always my advice to filmmakers is don't just make the film, don't just finish it and hand it over.
Okay.
Have a plan end to end up to marketing, and ensure that that marketing is also funded, so that you're not coming here and you're having to keep begging and you're having to like, please, let's give it a chance. Let's do everything because
that you can do.
You can.
Yeah.
You know, because I really am cringy about this thing where people protect their own at the expense of others. I'm not quite a believer in that. I feel like we can be better behaved here and there, and some things are not, you can't defend some things, but I feel like we also need to do the work and do the investments, particularly on the marketing side, for particularly even the newer films. Let's not forget that there are people like Funke Akindele we just mentioned, Tony Abraham, that have a huge fan base, a huge following. So are you going to say people are protecting their films when people turn up for their films anyway? So if you're going to compete against those kind of things, you must be ready to commit the resources. It cannot be a sense of entitlement like, but you should just protect us, you should just help us. No. If you want to compete against those kind of people, if somebody is releasing a film in a market or any products into the market, look at the amount of marketing that goes in. You're coming to work to dislodge an Indomie, for example, in this market, and you want to just go on taste, or you want to just go on giving people merchandise, it won't work. Do you understand? So I feel like that's where we need to balance the argument. We can sit down and just say, they are being bullish and they are holding. Let's balance it. Like, what resources are we also bringing to the table to say we're ready to compete? We're ready for this, cinema industry. And look, it opens up to other conversations around understanding the industry and terrain you're in, and how you then, use a lot of that understanding in going to make a film end to end. And I repeat, end to end, not just completing the film.
From script to screen.
To screen.
Yeah. So it's important that filmmakers really know their audience.
Very, very important, very vital. And more importantly, like, let's stop getting to this, misunderstanding, or would I say, get into this total misrepresentation of an industry that, you get marketing budgets separately, you've done the film, somebody's coming to save you. It's an independent industry, and I would love a session to just talk about how independent it is. That then means that every film is a project that needs to have funding fully to be launched into market.
Okay.
I feel like there's a disconnect where people make films and then like, what's my distributor doing? Your distributor didn't make the film. Your distributor is not your studio. We didn't commission you to make the film, and saying they will bring marketing. Your distributor is helping you to launch the film. There must be a marketing thought, plan, and fund, that was well executed to help your film compete, right? Yeah. And to help your film, do well in cinemas.
Okay. What is your biggest prediction of the kind of changes that Nollywood will see in this decade?
Wow. So I don't think it's a big prediction. Okay. I think Nollywood is currently underestimating AI.
Okay. How so?
I just don't see it being embraced enough and being talked about enough. And the pace that phenomenon is happening and is taking place. I feel like there might be a rude shock for those that are not preparing themselves for what it has to offer. And then we'll be, and I think what will just be different is nobody will be here to listen to the sulking, because people would have moved on.
You would have moved on.
With results to show. I was one of the people just weeks or months ago who felt, we don't have all the data sets, it's not rich enough, even with the prompting, the quality of the output, all of that. But honestly, I'm a convert now. So I think I think AI is going to do some really good things for our industry, and also with access. So I think that we should get ready for that. I think that the prosperity of Nollywood, as much as I love cinema, and I think cinema has a role to play, and cinema will continue to grow, I think the prosperity of the industry is on the digital platforms.
On the digital
Yes.
platforms.
And I think that a local player is going to win that race. I pray that the local platforms don't let me down. I pray that this is just a challenge to them.
Okay.
And I pray for, I keep using the word prayer, that we get off our high horse and stop trying to compete in silos and come together and form a proper, Avenger-like platform that caters to the realities of our market. Anyone that gets that right, that's where the true prosperity comes.
Okay.
And a few people are working on stuff that is exciting.
Is Nile included in that group?
I would say yes. We're having discussions with.
Okay.
We're having discussions and looking at that area, because look, cinemas cannot show every film. That's the truth.
True.
There needs to be a certain level and quality of films that need to go on cinema. But the barrier for entry for digital is much more lower, and YouTube has shown us that. What we're just looking for is, how can creators get paid more to make more audacious, more entertaining, more audience-specific content that they also they continue to get rewarded for. And we make those content in a way that audiences can legally and securely consume them.
Okay.
Those are my thoughts.